We have gone so far and reached the seventh episode of Rings of Power. Um, yeah, that's an achievement in itself. So let's watch it. So shall we focus on the Harfoots in this episode? I think everyone in this village should be dead, including Galadriel. Especially because of this, she stayed in the blast. And I bet that no one will die. I mean, a few villagers will die or are dead because we saw that flaming boulders were falling onto them, but I don't think any important character is dead. Now, I'm not looking forward to important characters' deaths or anything like that, but when you have such an event like uh, a volcano's eruption, Mount Doom explosion, however you call it, there shouldn't be many survivors left. And if all the survivors are the main characters or main and secondary characters, then yeah. I mean, we know for a fact that Isildur and Elendil will be alive. Galadriel is alive, but anyone else that are not important to the main narrative.
Are you hurt?
I think Theo. I think he might be an elf. I mean, he's the only Southlander who's we didn't see the ears. He have an olive tone for his skin. He's not as white as Bronwyn, and he might be the son of Arandir, and that will be a reveal of some sort. He's not dead. That's one problem, a general problem with all the prequels in every story. If you know that a character isn't dead uh, in the future, then whenever you see that character being in peril or anything like that, then you know for a fact the character will not die that way, at least.
Suppose what?
Maybe he could fix it.
Yes. Go on, just Nori. Fix those wounds. What you waiting for? He's done so much for us. It's my brood of us to ask more of him.
I see.
Until this point, you wanted to leave them behind.
I'll ask him then.
And these Harfoots are so hypocrite. Like literally 2 episodes ago, they were plotting of leaving them behind by I don't know what that woman said, but the intention was to actually ruin their car. For,
Muttering.
Likely little words, so the tree will understand.
He's fixing it. Just like Sadok said he would.
oh come on, it wasn't his fault. Ah,
No common elf, but Elrond half-elf, and I see in elves that which they cannot see in
half
themselves.
elven, half
That
elven.
is why I stand before you now alone,
How is it that he's half elven?
reading.
Okay, that's an information I wouldn't even think about. That there might be half elves.
I will speak to my setting shadow rock and mine to bury us all beneath the mountain. I will not risk dwarven lives to help the elves cheat death.
Cheat death? Father! My friend is drowning.
I like the king's reasoning.
For me to pull him to shore.
He's our king.
What kind of father would I be if I teach our children the will of a king should be counted as dross to be cast to the wind?
Yeah, he's also right. I thought that this mithril piece that Durin gave to Elrond would have been used to forge one of the rings, because as far as I know, at least one ring was made of mithril. Oh, let's see what happens now. Yeah, I thought so.
Earth without and within.
They really pulled the 180 on Galadriel.
Even I.
She's so different than the first episodes, and the transition is too abrupt. I mean, she did not transition from the Galadriel from the first episodes to this.
Perhaps we can make one of you yet.
She, I mean, she speaks words of almost wisdom now, but a few episodes ago, she was toxic and impulsive and commanding and demanding. She didn't have an arc, right, where she rose to be in some way better.
How much further until we reach the encampment?
What, she suffers from blindness now? From what? How did she become blind?
Kin, I mean.
My brother, Finrod.
No, that's her brother's name, Finrod.
And my husband,
What?
Husband.
Celeborn, was his name.
What?
We met in a glade of flowers.
What? What the? What?
Called him a silver clam.
No.
Never saw him again after that.
Okay, I never. Oh. Oh, come on.
Milady, what you said before.
I really do like the orcs in this show. I think the orcs are the best part of this show. They really made them good.
elvish dwarf, Durin.
Son of Durin. Grandson. Scoff of if
Durin, son of Durin, that sounds wrong.
dwarf can do is to be worthy of the name of his father.
They changed a lot. Here, they really took their liberties, like Celeborn dead or missing, Elrond being half elf, Durin, son of Durin, which is contrary the to their myths, like Durin is reborn or reincarnated in someone, and the people recognize the traits of Durin in one of his descendants and name him Durin. There is no Durin or Durin Junior, and yeah, you really have to to see this show from a perspective of not an adaptation, rather than of inspiration from the Tolkien books, because it is inspired from Tolkien books. It is not adapting those books or stories or whatever they have rights to adapt or be inspired from, which is a shame because they could have done a show based on a new IP or something of sorts.
Durin.
You should be banned from all Dwarven cities, as I recall.
Just look at it.
Yet again, I do like Elrond and Durin. They are one of the highlights of this show. I don't like everything around them. Like I don't know. Those are the things that I mostly don't like around them are related to the poor quality of writing. I still don't like the Numenorians armors. They look like they are made out of plastic, or as if they were 3D printed. I guess those seeds really helped her a lot. She looks better than before, even after the eruption.
On your feet now, girl. Stand up, and we gather what we can.
Yeah, she needs to learn that everything you do has consequences,
Let this into your spirit. It'll be all right.
and this is a way to learn it.
She's too old for that now.
I wasn't lying. It will be all right.
Pity's sake, Brandyfoot.
We face it with our hearts even bigger than our feet.
That line
And we
still
just keep walking.
does not work.
Seal it up.
And now a Balrog will appear. It will catch this leaf. This leaf. Seems I was right. But yeah, this was so predictable.
Or should we call it instead, Lord Father?
Mordor. Oh wow, they did a. Oh come on. They did a PowerPoint like title presentation. Okay, I think this episode was okay. I have learned to cast away any notion I have about the stories that Tolkien wrote because this is not an adaptation. They changed too much to call it adaptation. As I said before, in the Peter Jackson's trilogy, he also changed a lot of things, but they did not change the characters or what they are or what do they behave. His changes were more like, I don't know. Yeah, he put Eowyn, he made her the one that brought Frodo to her father. There were changes like that, but that did not change the stories, the narrative or the stories around the characters. While here, we now learn that Galadriel is actually married, a thing which we did not know so far, but more than that, Celeborn is dead or missing, which is wrong. We also learn that Durin might be half elf or Elrond is half elf. Kinda interesting. It goes a little bit against his character. I mean it is wrong, right? Elrond is not half elf, but let's take this show for what it is, which is a separate entity inspired by Tolkien's stories, right? So let's assume that Elrond is half elf. That creates an interesting dynamic, considering the fact that he was against Arwen's relationship with Aragorn. Since he is half elf, it means that Arwen is not completely elf. But how does half elf works here? Like, are they still immortal, even with that mithril light or not? Yeah, their changes are too much. They bring notions or ideas from other IPs like Dungeons and Dragons, maybe, where you have half orcs, half elves, so on. It is weird. Anyway, how do I rank this episode? I think it was a good episode. It focused on the aftermath of Mount Doom eruption, which is okay. It was what to be expected. They changed Galadriel's character a lot in these two last episodes. I mean, in the last episode she was bipolar, but she has hints of wisdom in her, and now she feels like a completely different character than the one that was presented in the first 5 episodes. And the Harfoot's plot line, I still think it is somehow a filler. I don't know. I don't care that much about them. They seem to be bipolar too. Like they make random choices. I don't know. They don't have a clear direction. Yeah, I don't know. I think I would give this episode a 7. We have only one episode left, so I fear that the last episode will not feel like an ending to this season, but rather maybe a pilot for the next season or something like that, and that is not good because the next season will be, I don't know when it will air. Like, it will take maybe a couple of years, or maybe next year. I don't know if they began production or not on the second season, but to keep so many things, or to leave so many things in air, I think this season should have had 10 episodes to have some sort of a proper ending to this. I don't know, maybe they'll do that in the next episode. Again, I treat this as an inspiration, not an adaptation. And because if I would treat this as an adaptation of the Tolkien stories, then this is junk. But since I treat it as an inspiration, I can maybe properly judge it, which is a shame because they could have created a new IP out of these storylines and maybe change enough things so that it would be totally separate from the Lord of the Rings IP. But I guess they wanted the Lord of the Rings fandom, which is a lazy shortcut to take. Anyway, as I said, I treat it as a separate entity, maybe a parallel universe or a multiverse, I don't know. I'm still wrapping my head around all the changes they have made so far, and in my mind I'm trying to figure out, with all these changes, how can they manage to get to the point where they don't feel like they changed a lot, like they have to reach that story of creation of the rings and Sauron taking forms, the Lord of Gifts, and the other forms that he took. But as far as I see, they won't be doing that. And also, this show is called The Rings of Power, and there is not a single intention of portraying those rings of power. And if they keep that plot until I don't know how many seasons ahead, then why call it this show that way? You could have called it, I don't know, Stories from Middle Earth, or Morgoth's Lieutenant, or Finding Sauron. I'm not sure. Maybe I will talk about this more in a final review of this entire season. But yeah, there are some things that I did not like about this episode, but comparing them to the things that I did not like from the previous episode, those from this episode are thin, and I think I'm okay with them. I mean, one of those things is that Queen Miriel, her motivation in the first episodes was to avoid the calamity of Numenor, the tidal wave that destroys Numenor. And we all know that it will come, and we all know the reason why now. They will change that reason because they changed so many things. Here, Queen Miriel had her motivations around avoiding the destruction of Numenor, but now her entire way of thinking has changed, and she considers the orcs to be the enemies, whereas as far as she saw, the orcs only invaded the Southlands. There is no connection between them and the destruction of Numenor. So far, maybe they will create one, but either way, Miriel does not know about any connection between the orcs and Numenor, and her motivations suddenly changed. Yeah, that would be a negative here, because they don't keep the characters constant, or they don't show an evolution or an arc, or they don't show why characters' motivations are changed. Actually, you might say that they show that here with Miriel being blind now and seeing the suffering of the Southlanders. but yeah, she, from a sane character point of view, she should not have this change of heart that quickly. Like, she was so convinced that any alliance with the elves would anger the gods, which might be the reason of the tidal wave. But now she is a total different person out of a sudden. Yeah, they had this problem with these characters. As I said, there are some negatives here, like the reveal of the Southlands now being called Mordor, uh, using a very cheap trick of changing the name, like in a PowerPoint presentation. That was lazy. Come on, that was so lazy. But still, this episode is a 7. It is okay. It is fine. But that was oh fuck. These are my thoughts, and I'm looking forward to the last episode of this season. I'm just curious how they will wrap this up. I hope they will surprise me.